You can start anytime, Myron.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting scheduled for today, Tuesday, May 26th, to order. And before we start the meeting, since we're doing it by phone, I'm going to read the state statutes in regard to how do we conduct our meetings when we cannot be present in the county boardroom. Following statements made, they should be made at the beginning of the meeting, and they're regarding to the statutes as I mentioned. So number one, it has been determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12, second statement. We have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another, can hear all discussion and testimony offered by today's meeting. 3, we have ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. Number 4, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have determined that it may be unfeasible for County Attorney Brady Powers, County Attorney Molly Hicken, County Administrator Rena Rogers, and members of the Board of Commissioners to be physically present at the county boardroom at the Cook County Courthouse. 5, all votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. Before we started this meeting, I determined that all commissioners are available, and we will do things by mentioning, as I mentioned, roll call votes. And so would you join me at this time with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have some adjustments to the agenda that I'm aware of, and then I'll call for any more, but I would ask that we add to number 5, the agenda item travel advisory from the county, and I put it there so that Grace Conager and Mike Keyport could be available right after their presentations, and it seems to be appropriate to put it that place. So do we have any other additions from anyone else?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think this is on your agenda. You see it now, but it came late.
Yes.
And
Right.
this was to approve the penalty rates that go in effect on July 16th.
Yes,
And I would leave it, since it was fully discussed, you could leave it under auditor, or it could be added to consent. Seems like it was thoroughly discussed, so either way.
Okay. I guess then, if you're proposing that, does anyone have any reservations? We discussed this. I think we had some kind of consensus. Would anyone be opposed to putting this under the consent agenda item? So be it. Then we will put it as the last statement after F for consent agenda item. Thank you, Brady.
Myron?
Okay. Yes.
This is Heidi. On my agenda, it says 5 as sheriff.
Yes, yes, that's what I have too.
Okay, so did you want to put the travel advisory under the sheriff or under
Number 4.
emergency operation? Okay.
It would be right after 4. Thank you. Yes, right after the report. So it's become number 5, and sheriff become number 6. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's make a motion. And would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve the agenda, so amended.
Yep.
Support.
We have support. Okay. Commissioner Storley has support. Very good. All those in favor will go by roll call vote. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner DeFer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Bershon, aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll go to the public comment period, and I believe that Administrator Rogers has received several or some, so I will turn it over to you, Administrator Rogers, for reading those to us, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. There is no one else publicly present today to make public comments, but I have received 4 different items. The first one is from Arvis Thompson, and it's related to the property tax penalty rates discussion from last time. And Arvis writes, penalty rates need to be in place on July 16th. Property taxes need to be paid in full by October deadline. The county has been more than generous in delaying the May 15th deadline penalty. How many households are having financial difficulty that they cannot pay their taxes? The number of people having more income on unemployment is significant and does not follow any logic that they cannot pay their taxes. If you feel you must offer some relief, then do it on an individual basis at the taxpayer's request. Second comment is also from Arvis Thompson related to the discussion about the enterprise vehicle leasing program. How much of a fleet are we going to need once we furlough or lay off employees? At this time, the long-term benefits of any program project are so unclear and unpredictable that anything other than information would be presumptuous. Please explain how the leasing program costs less than employees driving their own cars. People tend to take better care of their own vehicles than a government-issued auto. The third comment is related to the Day Logan permit, and it is from Janice Effler, who I believe is a neighbor of the Day Logans. Dear County Commissioners, I'd like to give you 3 good reasons why you shouldn't vote no on the day permit. Number 1, the dates of operation before you today are not the dates that were passed at the 4/14/20 Commissioner meeting. The dates proposed and voted on were the Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, beginning 8/21, 8/28, 9/4, 9/11, 9/18, and 9/25. The dates before you today are different. This is an easy no vote. Number 2, R1 property guidelines do not allow for those weekend events to operate in this zone. It is too large and disruptive for this small parcel. Item number 3, the continued operation of such a business next door will place a burden on me and my property. Zoning restricts activities that adversely affect the neighbors. We have pointed this out at each meeting. If these reasons are not enough to stop the day business intrusion, then vote no because of COVID-19. There are many truly local events that have chosen to not run this year. Those planners wish to keep our population safe. Day has been advertising to begin her events 30 minutes prior to the hours on this permit. She admitted to inviting customers to come early last year. This demonstrates a behavior that does not care. I suggest that each of you vote down the day permit. These activities would not be welcome in your neighborhood. Janet Effler, excuse me. And the final comment today comes from the business members of the Reopening Cook County group, for which some of us, myself and Commissioner Mills and Grace Grenager, also participate on. But this just came from the business group as a result of our travel advisory last week. This is a revision that they are asking that the board adopt today. So I'm just going to read it for the public record. Cook County Travel Advisory, May 26, 2020 revision. This is a revision to a travel advisory issued by the Cook County Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, March 24, 2020. In response to concerns surrounding the spread of COVID-19, the board, above all, advises that all residents and visitors abide by the most recent executive orders issued by the governor and any changes to state law. In keeping with Governor Tim Walz's action, May 13th, to move Minnesota from stay at home to stay safe, and subsequent actions to gradually and cautiously turn the dial towards a more open community, the Cook County Board of Commissioners issues this updated travel advisory for persons planning to visit Cook County. Number one, Cook County businesses are excited to be able to welcome visitors back to our community. Tourism is the foundation of our economy, and we truly enjoy sharing our community with visitors. At the same time, we take seriously the updated guidance from Governor Walz to protect workers, visitors, and our communities while gradually reopening our economy in a safe and welcoming manner. While restaurants remain closed to inside dining, many have gone to great lengths to establish curbside and takeout service, with outside dining to follow June 1st. Patience and adherence to posted public health policies are requested as our restaurants strive to serve guests as quickly and safely as possible. Number two, visitors will also encounter new policies at places of lodging, and all are asked to please respect these policies, which are designed to protect the health of both workers and guests. Number three, some businesses, including those on the Grand Portage Reservation, are not ready to reopen. The Grand Portage Tribal Council has closed the entire reservation to visitors until later this summer, with a tentative reopening date of June 15th. Please respect its wishes. Number four, the public health situation in Cook County, like the rest of Minnesota, is likely to remain fluid, which means public health policies and restrictions may change rapidly. We encourage all visitors to work with Cook County businesses and employees to adapt to these changes. Number five, Cook County is home to a very large population of elderly people who are at high risk to suffer serious illness or death from a COVID-19 infection. Visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our elders by rigorous adherence to social distancing, wearing face coverings, and washing hands. If you are a resident of Cook County and part of a high-risk population, please adhere to all safety measures prescribed by public health. Number six, everyone who lives in or visits Cook County cherishes this wonderful place of water and wilderness. Let us work together with common purpose to celebrate and enjoy it. For the most current information related to Cook County's COVID-19 response, including information about business hours and services, please visit www.cookcountycovid19.org or www.visitcookcounty.com. And again, what I read is not, for anybody that may have just tuned in, is not the revised travel advisory by the board. It was one that was recommended by the business members of the reopening Cook County group. That's all I have today. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you, Administrator Rogers. We'll go on to the consent agenda items. I think we'll just ask if anyone wants to pull any. We added the travel the tax delay penalty payment. If none, then I would entertain a motion to approve them as a whole with the amended one.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk makes a motion to approve. Porter second.
This is Commissioner Mills. I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills, for the second. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mills.
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley.
Aye, over.
Commissioner Deshaw.
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll go on to our emergency operations and command updates. Grace Granager, are you with us? And Mike Keyport, are you with us?
I am.
And Mike is actually physically here.
I didn't get invited
Okay.
to the meeting.
I did invite you, I thought.
Okay, so who would like to start with their report? Okay, go ahead. Thank you for all you're doing and for the updates. Caught them publicly, and thank you, Grace, for joining us yesterday in our telephone conversation regarding the travel advisory. Go ahead, Grace.
All right, I will get started. So as of yesterday, and since the pandemic began here in Minnesota, 21,315 people in the state have tested positive for the virus, and 881 have died from it. In this past week alone, 4,943 additional people tested positive throughout the state. Of those who have tested positive for the virus, 6,499 people are currently isolating at home, with 14,816 no longer needing to isolate. There are still no labs confirmed COVID-19 in Cook County. The state continues to work toward its goal of expanding its test capacity to up to 20,000 people per day. In the past week, we've averaged between 6,000 and 8,000 tests per day throughout the state. And updates from the Emergency Operations Center this past week. Since the pandemic began, there has been a worrisome downward trend in pediatric vaccination rates globally, as well as within Minnesota, which puts us at risk for outbreaks from other infectious diseases. I'm talking with the Sawtooth Mountain Clinic about how to address this trend through public messaging to parents throughout the summer. Today, we are wrapping up our last interview for the health educator position and hope to make an offer by the end of the week. This position will be an important part of building our capacity for public health response during the ongoing pandemic, including by conducting contact tracing for our county and the Northeast region. Discussions about contact tracing and scaling up the contact tracing workforce continue with MDH. There are multiple phases of scaling up plans with the goal of keeping pace with the rate at which the virus is spreading throughout the state. MDH is working out the details of the approach, with more information coming to me regularly. Andrea Orris from Sawtooth Mountain Clinic continues to manage volunteers to ensure food access through local grocery stores and to work with stores as they roll out different types of preparedness plans. I continue to regularly receive and answer health and safety planning questions from local businesses and other area agencies. Both Andrea and myself attended the Grand Marais Business Coalition meeting yesterday to hear from downtown businesses about how the weekend went and how to support their health and safety preparedness planning efforts. Attending business owners are working hard to adapt to the new environment, and we're surprised that many visitors did not have masks, although they were mostly open to wearing them. There were struggles with social distance, with lines to order food, and the group is brainstorming ways to address this. It is also stressful for business owners when there are customers who do not readily comply with safety practices that have been put into place, although these customers, according to the businesses, are in the minority. Lori Erickson, our Chief Logistics Officer, and Mike Seaport are working with North Shore Healthcare Foundation to clarify the procedure for distributing donations to medical partners through the EOCs. Tom Fleming, the new ambulance director for North Shore Health, did a Zoom presentation for volunteer responders about what to do if a person calls 911 because they are looking for a COVID test. We are considering changes to the website, including a project which the AmeriCorps service member might work on when she starts in June to help local producers list products for sale, given that the farmers market will be closed this year. We received both positive and negative feedback regarding the revised travel advisory from different constituencies within the community, all of which was sent directly to the commissioners for consideration. I am planning to meet with Diane Booth today regarding concerns for health and safety signage and hand washing at the playground, skate park, and community garden. There are still some technical issues with call forwarding for the community support line, and the media release and publicity push has been pushed back, although the service is up and running and fully staffed by volunteers 7 days a week from 4 to 10 p.m. and weekdays through the PHHS intake line from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. by PHHS staff. The number to call is 218-387-3637. And those are all my updates.
Thank you. So we'll do a roll call on any questions or comments for Grace Conager. We'll start off with Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Grace, for the updates and your continued work. And I don't have any questions, but I do want to just thank you again for your assistance and perspective, looking at the previous travel advisory in hindsight, and then now with developing a next travel advisory. So that's all. Over.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Storley.
Again, thank you, Grace, for all the work that you're doing, and especially with being able to connect now with folks who have gardens, and the fact that the farmers market will be canceled. That would really be important to have that updating in maybe a new site like you mentioned would be developed. So that would be really important. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Dufour.
As always, thank you for the update, Grace. You're doing a fabulous job. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner DeShaw.
No questions.
Okay. Again, Grace, thank you for your report and all your work. Mike Keyport, do you have anything to add this morning on Emergency Operations Command updates?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, community members. Grace covered everything very well with the Emergency Operations Center.
This is not, I'm not.
I think you got to come up here.
What?
So you have to come up here.
It's all garbled.
Why don't you just come closer and just talk, I guess.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
It's still, we're having audio issue again.
Are other people having an audio
Mr.
issue?
Chair?
Yes?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Mills, and Rena, it's a identical sound issue as we were having previously. I don't know if we need to call in from the courthouse on different phones or something, but I can hear Chair Bersheim just fine, but it's just the input from the courthouse side of things. Over.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Yeah, no. Yeah.
So I'm gonna close out, and I'm gonna call back in. That's always solved the problem before. Okay, so we'll call back in.
Okay, we'll wait for you.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Oh, technology.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, shoot.
Welcome to the State of Minnesota's Conference Center. Enter. Thank you. If you are the leader, please to start or join you will now be placed into conference. After joining the call, to record the conference for those who may miss this call, or for future playback, press *2.
Jenny, I'm doing the anti-rain dance because I like to drive my motorcycle.
You're back on. Can you hear us now?
After the rain.
Can you hear us now? Okay.
You know that you're all out of order. But that's okay. We'll call it chatter.
Want to make sure that one's working for when Bill comes in?
Sure. We're gonna
Rena, we still can't hear you.
You still can't hear me?
Test.
Can you hear us?
It's not very good at all. No.
How about now?
No.
All right, we're gonna give it one more shot here.
What do you need up in your yard, a dozer or excavator?
Welcome to the State of Minnesota's conference.
Yeah, it just wound up. Just got a big lump in between the house and the coal barn there.
Thank you. If you are the leader,
A little bit anyway.
to start or join your conference, press 1.
Get a
You will
bratwurst
now be
yesterday.
placed into conference. After joining the call, to record the conference for those who may miss this call, or for future playback, press *2.
I gave him a pretty nice donation.
How about now?
They do a lot for them
Hey.
kids up there, so.
Much better.
All right, so Mike, can you say test?
Test, test.
Can you hear Mike?
Yes, you can. Go ahead, Mike, with your report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Grace covered just about everything there on the EOC operations. The EOC continues to maintain an operation, obviously. We continue to have our daily briefings. That is part of that's an EOC function, if you will. That's part of what happens within an EOC there. I find them very important and also helps with time management, at least for myself, because we can ask questions and have discussions without having to go through an entire chain of emails, because keeping up with emails with this going on has been challenging, I'm sure, not only for myself, but others. The idea of the briefings is to, maintain communications with all the sections within the EOC, and we do our very best to keep it COVID related, although we do tend to, as humans, we get off track every now and then, have to bring it back around. But as I say every week, I continue to meet with the state and regional partners. We were kind of frustrated with the State Operations Center at first. They were having technology issues and different things, and they've really brought it around. They actually have an email where I can email in questions, and then at the next meeting, they address these questions directly. They have the answers before the meeting rather than getting there with the question and having to wait for your answer. So it's a good form of communication. The state continues to work with FEMA, and the state has assigned the Northeast region a gentleman that we can work with directly should we need questions as to the reimbursement process. In FEMA speak, there's a ton of documents out there. Brady and Kelly and his staff are doing a great job, and Jim and I of trying to interpret how we're going to file for reimbursement. In FEMA language, they sent out a document last week, and I can't remember the language. It was either streamlined or condensed, and the document was still 33 pages. So that's just working with the government. But we'll get through it. We do have, now that we have a good contact person, I think it'll make the process a little smoother for all of us here and work on the reimbursement process. Lastly, I'd just remind us all, I guess, that the continuity of operations plan falls under emergency managers, and when we first declared our emergency here in March, mid-March, that we did pretty well about remembering that we have to keep the operations within the county going here, and I think we just have to remember that everything isn't COVID, that we still have to hold our regular meetings and do what we need to do to keep county government going here. That's what I have for you folks today.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thanks for your work. We'll just go roll call on questions or comments for our emergency manager Keyport. Commissioner Storley?
Thanks again, Mike, for your work up there and keeping the ball going and being prepared. Appreciate it. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner DeShaw?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Dufer?
Thanks for all your work, Mike. Have a good afternoon. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Commissioner Mills. Thank you, Mike, for the update and the report. Just a note that I got to sit in a meeting with your counterpart in Lake County, and just was, great to hear another county's perspective and just the collaboration that you're doing. It's really good, makes us stronger. So thank you. Over.
Okay. Again, Mike, thank you so much for all your work and due diligence, and really got us off to a great start, and we're going really in the good stage of continuing to be on top of everything. Thank you. With that, we'll go to the travel advisory. I'll just give you a little background for the public and for commissioners. Last Friday, Attorney Hicken, Administrator Rogers, and I were in a meeting early in the morning, and after that meeting we just decided to talk a little bit about whether we typically have leadership team meetings on Mondays. And we started talking about the travel advisory, and after that discussion, I made a phone call to Dave Mills, or Commissioner Mills, and we had a conversation, and we knew that we had to address the travel advisory with the updates from the governor and so forth. So I want to thank Commissioner Mills, who sort of took on the challenge of trying to draft a revised policy based upon some of the discussion that we had Friday morning. And then yesterday morning at 9:30 or a little after, we were all able to connect by phone again and go through the work that Commissioner Mills had done in drafting this new revision. And in joining us in that meeting also was Grace Gonager, which was very helpful. We made some revisions, did some wordsmithing, and had some pretty good dialogue. So even though this is going to be something that we as commissioners have to agree to, we put a lot of work into it and a lot of thought, and trying to be current and trying to be cautious a little bit about our wording, not to be offensive, but to be welcoming to the extent that we should be and could be. And this is a very difficult time, and it's fluid, as we always talk about. So Administrator Rogers sent out a draft that we had developed yesterday morning to you, I believe, last night, to the commissioners. And so at this point in time, I guess I'll just ask each commissioner to comment. And Commissioner Mills, I'm going to start with you, so that if you have anything to add other than what I have prefaced for this conversation, you have that opportunity to do that well. And if Administrator Rogers or anyone else wants to comment as well, you're welcome to do so. But we'll go through the roll call for comments from the commissioners, and then anyone else can add to that discussion, and we'll see how we can go forward. And hopefully we'll reach a good consensus on this. So thanks again to all those who put a lot of time into this, and I think we got a very good revision to present you to work with today. So Commissioner Mills, if you have anything else to comment on, or anything that you would like to add to what I prefaced in this conversation, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Commissioner Mills. And I guess firstly, I want to recognize Commissioner DeShaw. Last meeting, when we were having discussion about our travel advisory, his point is that we saw changes from the state happening in the future, and that we will most likely going to have to revisit the travel advisory that we had just passed, and yeah, sure enough, that happened pretty quickly, and so it became clear, like you said, Mr. Chair, that we'd have to revise it, and just the framework started with our current advisory, and then with modifications from Attorney Hicken suggestions, as well as feedback from the business community, and then I kind of switched the framework over to theirs, the business community, using language to try to keep things more updated and not necessarily single anyone out. One aspect that we had discussed was in the language regarding Grand Portage, and we felt that taking that out or not using that was appropriate until we got direct communication from the tribal council, and so I'd be very open to including that in the next advisory, and I foresee us having to revisit this potentially on a weekly basis, and maybe the changes will be small, but I think it's important for us to stay on top of this, and just keep changing as we need to. Some other feedback we got was from the clinic and North Shore Health, and specifically down at number 4. They're hoping for a little bit stronger language in regards to social distancing. And we can talk about that as we go along here. The last thing I would say is just that this, and from my perspective, the intention of this advisory is to reach out to visitors, travelers from out of the area, just to give an idea of what is going on and how seriously we're taking this up here. And it's also to our citizens and residents to show how we are hoping and emphasizing visitors act and get their information from. So beyond that, I don't think I have any other comments right now.
Okay.
Over.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for all your work on this, as well as the others. And Attorney Hicken was involved in some of these emails over the weekend as well. We did have some emails going, and want to thank her for involvement in that as well. Okay, comments or questions, concerns, Commissioner Storley?
Thank you, and thank you to the group who worked on this and came up with, I think, a good advisory for now. As Commissioner Mills said, it's a fluid situation, and we look for guidelines from the state and from our public health in terms of how we certainly welcome people, but with caution. And I tried to play myself as a tourist this weekend with, okay, here's the idea. I want to go to the North Shore, and I want to stay at a business, and I want to find out if a restaurant is open. Well, I would go ahead and do that on my own. We have the advisory, but if I really want to know what the requirements would be, does the establishment ask me to bring my linen? Is the restaurant having curbside? Will I be able to get groceries? And maybe I'm kind of the over-the-top tourist, because I've been one for a long time. Maybe a lot of people don't do that, but I think this advisory, for now, addresses most of the concerns that would be relevant to people visiting Cook County. So for now, I think I agree with the advisory in the words that it has been put as of today. Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Storley. Commissioner DeShaw?
Yeah, I'm reading over it now there. It looks good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Dukert?
Okay.
Yeah, Dave, thank you very much for going through and revising that and helping to update it. I would like everyone to go to the top of our agenda and remember that our mission is supporting community through quality public service. We are not the EDA and we are not a marketing firm. I know that we need to support our businesses, but we also need to support the recommendations of our public health. And the number one priority is to protect the public, and that's what we do. And Dave, I think you addressed that. And along those lines, we have 2 of our health partners that have asked for that stronger language to be added back in. I know that our community members in the business district might not like the strong language, but again, it is our responsibility to keep our citizens safe. And when I say our citizens, I mean visitors and tourists and local people. And when we talk about, you know, Dave, you had mentioned tourists coming in, this travel advisory is also for people that live here 1 month out of the year or 12 months out of the year. If you leave our community and come back, please look at those recommendations and remember what the governor is setting for the state of Minnesota. Sorry to get wordy, but I was on a Skype meeting with my family from Sweden the other morning, and as many of you know, Sweden has a low number of cases, and that's because they listen to their government. They social distance, they wear masks, and they don't get all angry and upset about it. And so let's all be Swedish. Over.
Okay.
So,
Well, based upon,
Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
since,
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. Since this was a late addition to the agenda and it was not published, although we will add it later, I'm wondering if we could have Commissioner Mills read it out loud, and if people don't have, if they're okay with it, we'll just read it out loud. Otherwise, maybe he could go section by section to make sure that.
Hey,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So,
I just want to, this is great. I did get an email back from the clinic and North Shore Health, and their only suggestion, which I forwarded very early this morning, was to add back the rigorous adherence to social distancing. And I would support that. I mean, I feel like it is important to emphasize that it's not something you do once in a while. It's something that you really practice regularly. So that was the only addition that I got when I reached out to our healthcare partners and asked if they thought that section regarding healthcare was good from their perspective. So just adding in those 2 words, rigorous adherence to social distancing, in the bullet about health.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and we did receive that. And just
Okay.
for discussion purposes, we discussed that in our group yesterday, and it was in the original language, and then we took it out based upon that discussion, having the connotation of rigorous and how that's interpreted. I did some wordsmithing on that, and you know what it means, sort of demanding, harsh, strictly, inflexible, exhaustive, and strict. And it has different connotations for different people, but I guess going forward, what I heard from the commissioners, and this is still open, is that there seemed to be some consensus on the language that we presented. But at this time, then, I think I'll do another roll call because of what Grace Conager mentioned about whether you as a commissioner would want to add back the language on it. But first of all, I think we should have Commissioner Mills read it in its entirety, and then in the context of that, I guess somehow or the other we're going to have to read it with that language back in there. So Commissioner Mills, are you comfortable with it, and do you understand how to proceed? Do you have does anyone have that original one? I don't have it. I was at the lake, so I didn't access it. Commissioner Mills, do you comment on that, or do you understand how to proceed?
I am comfortable reading it. I have the draft in front of me and am also comfortable navigating the point that Grace brought up. So I can read it now as written thus far if you'd like.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. May 26, 2020. At today's meeting for discussion and action related to COVID-19 pandemic response, the Cook County Board of Commissioners voted unanimously to, well, this is, I guess, the previous one, so we haven't voted yet. The advisory reads as follows. Cook County Travel Advisory, May 26, 2020, revision. This is a revision to a travel advisory issued by the Cook County Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020, with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. The County Board, above all, advises that all residents and visitors abide by the most recent executive orders issued by the Governor. In keeping with Governor Tim Walz's actions on May 13th to move Minnesota from stay at home to stay safe, and his subsequent actions to gradually and cautiously turn the dial toward a more open economy, the Cook County Board of Commissioners issues this travel advisory for persons planning to visit Cook County. Please take seriously the guidance from Governor Walz to protect workers, visitors, and our communities while gradually reopening our economy in a safe and respectful manner. Number one, businesses have developed plans to operate safely. Access to businesses may be limited and may require that individuals wear face coverings. Grocery store procedures currently vary from limited entry to curbside pickup only. Number two, while restaurants remain closed to inside dining, many have established curbside and takeout service, with possible outside dining to follow June 1st. Patience and adherence to posted public health policies are requested as restaurants work to serve guests as safely as possible. Number three, visitors are asked to please respect new policies at places of lodging to protect the health of both workers and guests. Both public and private developed campgrounds remain closed to recreational camping, but dispersed and remote camping sites, such as the WCA campsites, are open for single household use only. Number four, Cook County is home to a very large population of elderly people who are at high risk to suffer serious illness or death from a COVID-19 infection. Visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our elders by regular social distancing, wearing face coverings, and washing hands. Visitors who are feeling sick before they arrive should stay home. Visitors who get here and start to feel sick should call Sawtooth Mountain Clinic at 218-387-2330 or the regular healthcare provider. Your regular healthcare team can offer you continuity of care. For emergencies, please dial 911. Number five, this is an ever-changing and very serious health situation. Cook County needs to be diligent in its response and will change this advisory as needed. For the most current information, including information about business hours and services related to Cook County's COVID-19 response, please visit www.cookcountycovid19.org. Contact Rena Rogers, 218-387-3687, or rena.rogers@co.cook.mn.us.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. And then, do you have the language or understand where to insert the recommendation or similar words to rigorous adherence? How would that read?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be in number 4, and I can read that with that change, if that's all right.
Sure.
Thank you. Cook County is home to a very large population of elderly people who are at high risk to suffer serious illness or death from a COVID-19 infection. Visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our elders by rigorous adherence to social distancing, wearing face coverings, and washing hands. The rest is the same.
Okay,
Over.
very good. Thank you. Well done. So we'll do a roll call, and I would just ask that the commissioner, in response, would indicate whether they would want the language as presented in a written form to you today, or if you would prefer to have the rigorous adherence stated in number 4 instead of regular. It would be rigorous adherence for social distancing, wearing face masks, and so forth. Does anyone have a question on that issue? I think please indicate so now. Otherwise, I'm going to start with a commissioner and ask whether you want the language as was presented earlier or adding the rigorous adherence, and then we'll see where we're at on that. So I'll start with Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. My indication and inclination is to keep rigorous adherence to social distancing as part of our new travel advisory. Over.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Dukert?
Yeah, I want to leave that in, but there's a couple, I guess, typos. In the first paragraph, Tuesday, March 24th, it's Tuesday, March 26th. Under number 3, visitors are asked to respect policies at lodging. Can we put in there somewhere as of May 26th? Because as you know, these advisories float around for a long time. And so at some point, the governor may reopen campgrounds. And I don't want people to read our advisory and assume we're saying something different than the governor. And then if we could also note in number 4, it isn't just the elderly population that's at risk. If we could somehow also address that we have people with compromised immune system. And that's all I have. Over.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner DeShaw?
I guess it doesn't matter either way. I just think we need to use what we have here and move on, because I'm sure we're going to be looking at it again next week. So that's what I got.
So you're open to whether we have rigorous adherence? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to me. We're going to be looking at this next Tuesday again anyway, so.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully expect to be looking at this next week as well. And at this point, I think rigorous adherence, just based on anecdotes of the weekend and concerns from the clinic and North Shore Health and our public health, I think rigorous adherence is where I would lean to. I don't see rigorous with a negative connotation, just as a thorough and connotation. And I do appreciate Commissioner Dukerk's suggestions with some edits, and would be happy to include those as well. Over.
Okay, as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with rigorous adherence. I would prefer strict adherence, but that's just, it's just from my experience and background, we're all a product of our experiences, and rigorous seems, it may be a strong, definitely, and I support that, but it can mean harsh or demanding or exhaustive or something like that, but I'm fine with rigorous. So I guess then the issue is, should we modify the language suggested by Dukert? And I know that Commissioner Mills is in favor of that. So do we all understand where that language would be inserted? So Commissioner Dukert, would you please add that again? And then we'll include that, I think, going forward into a motion unless someone objects.
Okay, once again at the top, it's Tuesday, March.
Commissioner Dukert, this is Attorney Hicken. Can I make a comment on that date? I hope that you can hear me. I have a different method for participating in today's meeting. The date in the first paragraph, Tuesday, March 24, that is the date that our initial travel advisory was issued. So that's the purpose of having that date in there. So would not be a typo. I went back and
Okay.
checked, and that is the actual date of our first.
Thank you.
And I was looking at March and thinking May.
Right, yep.
Okay, so we'll leave that.
Okay.
And then in 4, we're adding the rigorous adherence, which it sounds like we mostly agree to that. Number 3, to put in there today's date. And then in number 4, to also add
Explain that.
population. In number 3, the reason why I want today's date in there is because people will pull this advisory up at a future date. Even if we change it next week, people will pull this advisory up and make the assumption that the county is having different regulations than the governor. So I want, anytime this document is pulled up, I want people to know that this is as of today that the campgrounds are closed, so we don't negatively impact any campground.
Okay, thank you. What I'm asking is how would that read? Would you please insert the language into the text that you're suggesting?
Both public and private developed campgrounds remain closed to recreational camping as of May 26th.
Good. Okay. And then
Number
continue
4,
with but dispersed and remote camping? Or end
Yep.
with that?
Nope.
Continue with,
The date
okay.
needs,
So
number
continue
4,
with the
Cook County is
language
home. Number 4, Cook County is home to a very large population of elderly people and people with compromised immune systems who are at high risk to suffer serious illness or death.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mills. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I tried to unmute and I hung up instead. And so the last thing I heard from Commissioner Dukirk was the date after the word camping. What I was wondering is if we could just put it at the beginning of that sentence, and then if I could learn what was said about number 4. That was something I missed.
Okay, I agree with number 3. As of May 26th, visitors are asked to please respect new policies. And then number 4, Cook County is home to a very large population of elderly people and people with compromised immune systems.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, I think number 3, would you comment on that? I think she put it at the beginning of the sentence. I think maybe it would be better with the second sentence, but Commissioner Mills, please comment on that.
Yes, that's what I was intending was to say as of May 26th, both public and private developed campgrounds remain closed to recreational camping. And then I was wondering for number 4 if I'm not aware of a very large population of immunocompromised individuals. However, if we go to the second sentence of number 4 and say visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our elders and immunocompromised individuals, we could put it there. Would that be?
Dave, I agree with that, and my intent was not that we have a high number of immunocompromised. I was looking at it, and thank you very much for that change there. It makes more sense where you put it.
Okay.
This is Grace.
Very good.
One suggestion that might incorporate Heidi's comment. What if we were to say Cook County is home to a large number of people at high risk from complications due to COVID-19, including elders and those with compromised immune systems? Because there are several risk factors, and it might be a more inclusive way of stating that.
Amen.
Okay, so we all understand. Then I'm going to ask you, Grace, to read that number 4 with the context of what you're suggesting so that the public and we all understand how that will read. Could you do that, please?
Mr. Chair, I could take a go at it if.
Okay, if she's fine with that, very good.
Or I'm happy if Grace wants to as well.
Sure. I'll just read that first sentence then. Cook County is home to a very large population of people who are at high risk from complications due to COVID-19, including elders and those with compromised immune systems.
Okay, and then the rest of the statement for number 4 would continue as presented in the draft, correct? All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Mills?
The rest of the draft, that second sentence, just says elders, so that might be a tweak.
Yeah. But once you start wordsmithing, we continue, don't we? Okay. So visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our elders.
It can just be changed, take elders out and put community in.
Okay. Very good. I like that. Anyone else can disagree with that? I've just been stating are asked to help us protect the health of our community by rigorous adherence to social distancing. Okay. Any questions on what has been presented and I think hopefully understood by anyone? I'm just going to ask if there's any concerns or questioning about the wording that I think we have proposed. And I guess I would like to see if we can read it in its entirety again. And Commissioner Mills, are you comfortable with that, with the changes? So I think when we adopt this, we all understand it. Are you comfortable with that?
I am still hacking away at number 4, but will be comfortable here in a moment. Or if someone has the language, I'm open.
Yeah. Okay. So Attorney Hicken, did you interject something?
I did. I have been doing my best to follow these edits and have been typing them into my draft document if you'd like me to read what I have.
Yeah. Very good. Let's do that. Would you go ahead, please?
Yes. So paragraph 1 with the date remains the same. Paragraph 3 reads, visitors are asked to please respect new policies at places of lodging to protect the health of both workers and guests. As of May 26, 2020, both public and private developed campgrounds remain closed to recreational camping, but dispersed and remote camping sites such as BWCA campsites are open for single household use only. Paragraph 4 reads, Cook County is home to a very large population of people who are at high risk of complications of COVID-19, including elders and those with compromised immune systems, period. Visitors are asked to help us protect the health of our community by rigorous adherence to social distancing, wearing face coverings, and washing hands. And then the rest of that paragraph remains unchanged. And the rest of the advisory remains unchanged.
Very good. So with that, I think I will call for a motion to approve with those revisions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills.
One further edit was the call Sawtooth. It just says Sawtooth Mountain in the draft, and it should say Sawtooth Mountain Clinic. That was the only change over.
Okay, very good.
I'll add that, Commissioner Mills.
Very good.
Commissioner Mills, are you comfortable with how Molly changed number 3?
Yes.
Okay, so am I.
Okay. Very good. I'll call for a motion to approve the draft that was presented in writing to all of us with the changes that we've made in our previous discussion.
So moved.
This is
Commissioner
Red Duck
Dukert,
by-
over.
Okay. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Mills. I'll second.
Very good. Any further questions? Comments? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukert?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye, over.
Commissioner Bershheim is aye, unanimous. Thanks for all the great work for, especially Dave and some of the others that have been weighing in on this, and especially our discussion today. I think we crafted a real good document going forward, and more than likely we'll take a look at it again next Tuesday as well. So we'll move on to the sheriff for item 6. Sheriff Eliason, are you with us?
Rowan, are you going to do this for the sheriff?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. You can. Very good. Okay.
Right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The request that we have here is for signatures of an appointment form for 2 committees of the Northeast Emergency Communications Board. This would be for the owners and operators as well as the users committee, and these would be representing Cook County on these committees that then report to the Emergency Communications Board for the Northeast region, which we are a part of per a joint powers agreement.
Okay. I believe that information was provided, so instead of doing a roll call, I'm just going to ask, state your name, any commissioner, if you have any questions or comments about this item. Do we have any? Then I will entertain a motion to authorize the board sheriff to sign these documents.
So moved. Commissioner Dukert.
Okay, thank you. Support?
Support, Storley.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukert?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Bershheim, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Rowan?
Thank you.
We'll move into MIS, and I believe Rowan is here with us today for this one as well. For the Colville BDA Tower, we had a PDF presented to us in our packet to request the use of $37,000 of the remaining equipment bond funds to purchase tower hardware to ultimately be used to improving armor coverage along Highway 61 east of Grand Marais. Rowan, you have any more comments on that?
I think most of that was covered in the board packet. It's what we're requesting to use is remaining equipment bond funds that were left unused because the sheriff's office received a grant for their 911 system, and it is the recommendation of the Cook County 911 Communications Committee that we use $37,000 of those unused equipment bond funds to purchase the hardware for a tower that will ultimately be used to support the BDA in Colville. There's more expenses and a lot more work that needs to be done, but we wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to purchase the hardware for the tower that will be stored until we have the funding and the timing for the rest of the project to be done. And maybe just for reference for the public that might be watching the video, the Cook County 911 Communications Committee is made up of representatives from the Cook County MIS, Sheriff's Office, Fire Chiefs, Emergency Management, Cook County Ambulance and Hospital, Grand Portage, Arrowhead Electric, Grand Marais PUC and ISD 66. Those are the voting members, and it was voted unanimously for this recommendation. And this coverage in this area is very important to all of our public safety and armor users. I would stand for any questions on.
Okay, so I'll just open it up. If you state your name if you have questions, we're not going to do a roll call on this one. But if any commissioner has a concern, questions for Rowan, please indicate by your name, and we'll call on you for it now.
Hey, Rowan, this is Bob.
Then go ahead.
This tower that we're putting up, would that be able to support more like a cell phone server if they wanted to go on it?
The short answer is yes. There's no interested parties at this time, but per the Cook County Tower Ordinance, the towers that are built need to be built with co-location in mind, and the tower that we spec'd out and the one that we're requesting to purchase is capable of holding a full load additional cell phone carrier.
Okay.
In addition to our equipment.
Thanks.
Commissioner DeShaw, is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, any other questions, comments? Very good. I'll entertain a motion then to approve the transfer of $37,000 from a grant to this equipment bond.
So moved, Commissioner Dukert.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Support.
Support, Dorley.
Okay, well, I got DeShaw first, I think, though, right?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead. Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Mills.
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye, over.
Commissioner Duker.
Aye, over.
Commissioner Storley.
Aye, and thank you, Rowan, for all the work that you have done and are doing and will do. Appreciate it. Over.
Thank you. Commissioner DeShaw.
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, B, AT&T Service Hoagland Tower. And this is a request approval of a contract with New Singular Wireless PCA LLC, which provides cell service on Hoagland Tower at a lease rate of $45,600 per year with an annual 2% increase of the previous year's rent. So, Rowan, do you have anything else to comment in that regard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The request is to allow for a co-location on an existing county-owned communications tower on Tower Road in Hoagland. This is part of the FirstNet build-out, which will significantly improve coverage for not only our deputies, MDCs, but as well as private citizens who use AT&T as a cell service carrier in the area. I would also mention that the tower is located on DNR property, and we've done a lot of work with the DNR to amend the underlying ground lease to allow for this co-location. As you mentioned, it is the revenue that we've negotiated for the lease is $45,600 per year with a 2% annual escalator. And this is a 20-year lease made up of 4 5-year terms. And the revenue would be applied to our radio communications tower capital account, which is used for ongoing tower maintenance and replacement costs. And I would stand for any questions on this as well.
Hey, do you have any questions on Hoagland Tower? Please state your name. If none, then I will entertain the motion to approve this contract.
I'll make that motion to approve the contract with New Singular Wireless.
Support, Commissioner Duker.
Very good. Commissioner Storley, aye or nay?
Aye, of course, over.
Okay. Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye, over.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye, over.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Bertrand's IO passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Self-service. Yes, self-service project. We've got some updates. This is just information only. So, Rowan, any information you'd like to share other than what was on the PDF?
Yes, thank you. The handful of other ongoing cell phone self-service projects that we like to keep the board as well as the public who we know watches these videos updated on. We have a handful of ones that continue to progress that we would like to just give informational updates on as we can. The first one is Gunflint Lake, AT&T at Gunflint Lake, and AT&T continues to move towards adding a new tower at the Gunflint Lake site. Per the Cook County Tower Ordinance, there are several steps that they need to take before they can do this. This includes demonstrating through structural analysis that the existing tower cannot be modified to accommodate additional loading. At this point, they have submitted a structural analysis showing this, as well as construction drawings for a proposed tower site that have been reviewed and meet tower ordinance requirements in terms of setbacks, tower height not requiring lighting, and all the other items that they need to do. We've worked with on the lease language with County Attorney Hicken, and this the way that this is structured, the lease is structured as for a rent abatement agreement that would result in county ownership of the tower without any out-of-pocket expenses to the county, which is preferred because it allows us to dictate the specs of the tower, which then again, per tower ordinance, would require the build-out of the tower to be built to accommodate co-location of additional carriers. So this project continues to move forward, and we just want to keep everyone apprised to where it is and how it's going. We've also looped in land services, and we're starting to move forward with the approval process on that. We have a handful of other AT&T projects ongoing. We have one out at Sawbill, and we're working with the U.S. Forest Service on confirming or validating property ownership at the request of AT&T. And once that is complete, we expect that project to go fairly quickly. Hopefully that can be resolved, and that can still be a 2020 project. On the old Ski Hill Road above Grand Marais, AT&T has co-located onto the county-owned tower, and the equipment and backhaul installation is complete. Their testing phase is ongoing, but we expect that site to be live soon and hope to see some improved AT&T coverage and service in the Grand Marais area. And then also out at Grand Portage Info site, AT&T continues to move forward with backup power generator, and we're hopeful to see that in 2020 as well. The other two site updates that I have are Verizon. Verizon is working on building a new site, new tower at the Grand Portage Info site, very similar to Gunflint. The existing tower has been structurally modified multiple times and can no longer accommodate additional tenants. So we did a site walk with Verizon last week. We also talked with Tony Swader from Grand Portage Trust Lands about permitting and approval process, as well as modifying the underlying land lease that we have with Grand Portage. And so that project also continues to move forward. Also, Verizon has shown interest in renewing the Hoagland project they put on hold in 2018. This would mean we would need to start over, and like I previously mentioned for AT&T at Hoagland, we would need to first amend the underlying ground lease with the DNR before we could move forward with that project. But Verizon has renewed this project again and is requesting to move forward. That concludes the handful of updates I have for self-service sites, and I would stand for questions on any of those.
Okay. Commissioners, would you just state your name if you have a question or a comment? And if we have too many that want to talk, we'll go through a roll call on that. But just give you the opportunity to do that now. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Commissioner Dukirk?
Yes, go ahead.
Rowan, just clarify, AT&T request, is that part of the FirstNet project?
Yes, it is.
And do you know where we are? Didn't they have like a 5-year deadline to get those up?
They have a 5-year deadline that is a statewide percentage base or total number of sites built, but they will not and do not disclose the exact location of these sites, and I think part of that is because they're worried that that information could be used against them as leverage for negotiating contracts. If the landowners or property owners know that they have a site that needs to be built in X amount of time, I think they're worried about the prices being jacked up on them, knowing that they have financial incentives to meet, and penalties if they don't meet that 5-year term. So there is a deadline with financial incentives for them, but we don't know if our sites are included in that list or not.
Okay. And where are we on that deadline? Are we close to 5 years?
We are. I think 2022 is the deadline for that, I believe.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other commissioners want to comment or ask a question? Very good. Well, thank you, Rowan, and also thanks to our director, Rogers, for all the work that's been done with our tower program. It's as self-supporting as can be, and it's just been some great planning and great work and expertise. So thank you, Rowan, and thank you, Rena, for your work on this in the past and going forward. We're going to go to assessor with the property tax abatements, and then we'll take a break. So I'll go to the assessor, and is the assessor there with us this morning?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Very good. Well, what I'm going to do is sort of turn it over to you for comments, but I think in how to process this as a board, ask you to make some comments, and then what I'll do is there's numerous ones listed there, and hopefully you've read them on pages 62 through 74, and we would pull anyone that you want to talk about or have some concerns about. Otherwise, I'm going to ask that we approve all of them. I believe that that's appropriate protocol. Assessor Thompson, why don't you go ahead, and would that be a logical way to proceed for you?
Yes, I guess, Mr. Chair, I would ask you for your preference if you want to treat each one individually as specific to the appeal or the application. And I mean, I guess that's totally up to you, or if you want to try and treat them differently. They could be broken into two categories if you want to consider it that way. The first one is a disaster abatement for the fire that happened downtown. It's the only application we've received so far. And then the other 5 are for clerical error for inputting incorrect code in the 2019 assessment. So they're all the same issue. So you could treat them, however you feel appropriate.
Okay, I think what we'll do is, as I mentioned, I'll just further clarify that we'll go through them after you present your information. I'm going to ask if any commissioner wants to pull one to treat it individually.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm going to ask for approval of all of them at once. So I think we just expedite this as fast as possible. That clears up.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the first one here in the packet is for parcel ID 801460-190. That's the disaster abatement for the fire that happened downtown. This one is on the Picnic at Pine. We sent out the applications the day after the fire, so we're just waiting on the other 2. The next property here, or I suppose I can take any questions if there is, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Yes, I think that'd be good. So if any commissioners have any questions about any or would want to pull one to treat it separately, I'll state your name and I'll let you proceed as chair. Okay? Any questions, comments, or pulling any one of these? Okay, then I'm going to ask for a motion to approve these abatements. Someone like to make a motion in that regard?
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve the abatements presented. Over.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Commissioner Dukirk, second.
Very good. Roll call vote. Commissioner Storley?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Bersheim is aye. Passes unanimously. Very good. We'll take a break. It is 9:55. Let's see if we can get back together at about 10:02. Okay?
Commissioner Bersheim, for the record, I vote aye on that last one.
I'm sorry. I missed you. Thank you. Thought I had you checked off.
Yeah.
Passes now. It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just make a quick comment.
Go right ahead.
So I'm going to try and schedule some time for the next committee of the whole meeting on the 16th to review our abatement policy. We've been working with the County Attorney Hicken to try and adopt a new policy. So I will put that on the agenda for the next committee of the whole meeting, and you guys can expect we can have a little discussion about updating that.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Any other questions, comments before we take a break?
Yeah.
Okay, let's come back at just come back at 10:05. Can you sit by all?
Yes, sir.
Be online by that time.
I haven't heard that Charlie was retiring. Wow, well, that's something. Huh.
He's 67 or 68
He is,
years
eh?
old. It's about time.
Gosh, you know, I know him, but you wouldn't think he's that old.
No, he doesn't. He's tired, I think.
Yeah. I didn't know Charlie was retiring.
Huh?
I didn't know Charlie Sawyer was retiring.
Yeah.
Huh. So what do you think the plan there is? Huh? Oh. Oh, it wasn't you. Oh, well, we're actually going to create the two jobs like it was before. They're the foreman and supervisor. He didn't have one for it. I think they kind of drove them crazy. So what will they do now? Will they take an employee from there? Or they have the opportunity to put in for it. I think there's a couple guys in there that'll be, you know, one guy that I think I was talking to the other day, but I didn't mention it, but I think Jesse Bass, a good guy. Yeah, the one's, the foreman one here, and Logan, the other one here. A lot of people that, it seemed like Jesse would have those qualities. I don't know how you feel. Yeah, he likes to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Or he just likes to do the job and go home. You know, like my brother Dan, he does it, he fills in for Charlie once in a while. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I'm 58, he's 60, he'll be 61, you know, so I mean, he's probably 5 years, so I don't know if he wanna, you know, and Greg Thompson, he'll fill in too, but I mean, Greg probably, the next guy will see retire. What's his name in the trail? Who's that? Oh, Eeyore, Danny named him that. Yeah, he's going this one. He is, eh? We should have sent that committee.
So, just curious, the abatement that everybody just approved, how much money did we lose?
Eventually gained $2,300.
So,
No,
we abated.
No, it was 2,300
That was the,
total.
I don't think so.
That's what it said.
There were all these individual ones and it wasn't clear.
No matter how you vote, it'll pass it. Well, One was
This one doesn't
$260
say.
and one was, I couldn't believe it. And on a week from today, it's all gonna change again. Yeah. That's, when they were in to look at it again. I was upset. I probably, I did. Oh, I can't do it.
This one doesn't say.
They're all butterflies.
6.
So how's everything gone so far?
In here,
Yeah,
I think good.
good.
Yeah, we kind of are in a groove with, keeping the travel advisory current. I mean, if you think about an advisory, like, there's ice on the bridge.
Yeah.
That changes every day,
Yeah.
and you need to update it. And this is not unlike that.
Boy, I tell you, I saw this weekend there's a very cavalier approach at play.
It was concerning,
Yeah,
and a lot of people are concerned.
yeah,
I'm not going to go downtown,
right.
but a lot of people are going to be at risk. The people that
Yeah.
are working in those stores, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it.
It's become a statement.
It is.
But the good thing, I talked to my 101-year-old aunt yesterday, and she's still doing okay.
Cool. I think it's just, we have to stay in our lane as government, and
Yeah, it's critical.
and to keep putting out doing what's right from a public health point of view. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
It's kind of a little balancing act you got to wander through. So.
mm-hmm,
But I think this is a pretty good revision, and I think we're getting it.
yeah. Still COVID-free.
And we'll
Not
see
for
how long.
long.
Yeah. Yep. I wouldn't put any money on it lasting another 2 weeks, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
How you doing, Skizzle? Nice shirt. That's kind of matching there, right? No.
Yeah, you
I don't
guys,
see it, but okay.
Brown.
it's the kind of the same color scheme.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you got some memo or
But
something.
her clothes are probably clean.
Is Stacy still is Stacy or
Stacy is here, yes.
someone there taking? Stacy, got a question for you before we start?
Okay.
Do you want me to come in and sign some things this afternoon as we previously
We'll,
decided?
we'll have some stuff for you, Myron, but if you could do that later in the afternoon, gives us time to print all of them.
Okay, so you want me to do it today or tomorrow? Doesn't matter.
I think today is fine, but more like 2:30 or something.
Okay, let's just pick 3 o'clock.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bersheim and
Yes.
this is Attorney Hicken. I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm just asking that the Walter Road easement definitely make it into that packet. That one is very time sensitive. So I will make sure that.
I'm making a note all along in the agenda which things need signature, and I'll just print them all out after the meeting. We'll have them ready.
So I'll just go to the
Thank you so much.
I'll just go to the auditor's office at 3 o'clock today.
Sounds good, Myron.
Okay. Very good. Do we have everyone on board? Commissioner DeShaw, are you there?
Yep.
Commissioner Duker?
Here.
Commissioner Mills?
I am here.
Commissioner Storley?
Yes, present.
Very good. Very good. We'll go on to land services. Call the meeting back into session. Request number A, request for an interim use permit allowing a home business in the FAR3 zone district. I know at the original one, I think there was a little confusion on the PDF on that one, but who is with us to present that today? Bill Lane?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Can you hear him okay?
Could be a little bit louder.
How's that? Better?
Just speak up.
Speak up? Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 3 new items from the April 22nd meeting of the Planning Commission and 1 old item from the April 18th Board of Commissioners meeting. First one is James and Katie Bissell's interim use permit request for a home business operation in the FAR3 zone district. And as suggested by you, Mr. Chair, there were some discrepancies in the PDF documentation. I will admit that I am not an iCompass wonk, and I had to rely pretty exclusively on April Zimmer to get these documents to you, and I appreciate April's efforts in doing so. James and Katie Bissell Katie, in fact, is the operator and purveyor of Cat's Tats, which is a tattoo operation regulated by the state, and they own property up on County Road 7, and they have a portable trailer which they use for tattoo artistry at both away from Cook County events, and also what she's doing now is looking to have an operation in Cook County, doing so at their property on County Road 7. Included in your packet was an example of the trailer space and that sort of thing. And the discussion from the Planning Commission was pretty unspectacular. The concern was basically that there not be any interruption to travel or adjacent properties, and that was panned out by the application and by testimony from Ms. Bissell herself. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve this request. You have a draft resolution included in the packet with the conditions that were established, and the Planning Commission respectfully asks that the Board of Commissioners approve this home business request.
Very good. Okay, we'll just open it up for any questions or comments. Please state your name, and I'll call on you to go forward. Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve this interim use permit to continue into this home business operation.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Mills, I'll call on you for the motion. And do we have a second? Support?
Support, Commissioner Duker.
Okay. We'll have a roll call vote on that. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Bershheim is aye. Passes unanimously. We'll go to B.
Charlie, no, wait.
Oh, excuse me,
Charlie.
sorry. Yes,
Aye, over.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm trying to hurry too much here. We'll go on to B, request for a conditional use permit allowing a third residential unit on a property in the R1 zone district. Mr. Lane, if you want to comment on that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is a request from Michael and Tammy Holston. They purchased their property down at the west end of Cook County on Lake Superior in 2018. The previous property owners built effectively a third residential unit in shoreland in the North Shore Management Zone. According to Minnesota Shoreland Rule 6120, you're allowed a primary and a secondary dwelling. In this case, the new owners saw that as a shortcoming on their ownership and worked with Land Services to get this interim use, or it's actually a conditional use permit, allowing this third residential unit, which is a rustic, fairly primitive, livable unit above the garage. Mr. and Mrs. Holston did indicate that this was exclusively for family use. One of the conditions is, however, that if they do want to rent it out, it has to adhere to the new vacation rental ordinance. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve with little discussion and forwarded it to the Board of Commissioners with the request for your subsequent approval.
Very good. So any questions or comments on this one? Please state your name and we'll call on you. Very good. So I'll entertain a motion to approve this residential unit property for conditional use permit.
So moved, Commissioner Duker.
Thank you, Commissioner Duker. Second, support.
Commissioner Mills, I second. Over.
Thank you. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner Starley?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershheim, aye. Passes unanimously. D, request for an interim use permit allowing the hot mix asphalt production and expansion of a gravel pit from 5 to 20 acres. Mr. Lane, do you want to go ahead with that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a case that was originally scheduled for April 8th. It was postponed due to the COVID-19 restrictions. It's a request by Labota Grading, Labota Enterprises, and Hewlin Brothers to expand an existing gravel pit out off the Arrowhead Trail. The pit is under titled ownership by Clarence Kemp. He has a contract for deed agreement with Labota Enterprises for purchase of the pit at its present configuration. It is a 5-acre open area allowance, which was expanded in 2015 from a 2-acre open area allowance. And the request that was brought forward by Hewlin and Labota was really in order to accommodate a projected project on Highway 61 up by Grand Portage for 17 miles of resurfacing and culvert installation and replacement and that sort of thing. Since this meeting, the bid was awarded to Northland Constructors, and some of the components of the request, including the expansion of the pit to 20 acres, aren't, in our opinion, aren't as critical to going forward as they were with the suggested award of the bid in the project for Highway 61. One of the concerns that Land Services does have is that there is a fairly large complex of wetlands in this gravel pit, and we've kind of implored and begged the pit owners to make sure that hydrology, wetland conservation are addressed as part of any moving forward or expansion of the pit. As you noted in the summary, Land Services is of the opinion that it wouldn't be a bad idea to come back to the Planning Commission for a more thorough discussion of that expansion of open area. The hot mix facility is relatively easy to accommodate for a couple reasons. One, it is in section 10.06 of the zoning ordinance for hot site siting. Two is because it's highly regulated by the MPCA, permits and otherwise. And so the hot mix is not really an issue for us, but based on our discussions post-meeting, post the 22nd meeting, we would just like to have this at least considered to send back to the Planning Commission so we can more thoroughly engage in a discussion and conversation regarding that, the potential conflict between expansion and hydric connectivity and preservation. The permit request nevertheless was approved unanimously with little discussion, which was part of what I just described as being a concern, and forwarded to the Board of Commissioners with recommendation for approval, which would result in a amendment of Resolution 2015-53 with the expansion to 20 acres and the hot mix facility allowance.
Very good, thank you. So any questions or comments, please state your name and we'll go forward. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the interim use permit allowing hot mix asphalt production and expansion of the gravel pit from 5 to 20 acres.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
This is Commissioner Mills. So can we approve the hot mix and send back the expansion to the Planning Commission? Is that appropriate? Would that be a potential action by the board?
I believe it is an allowance.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Director Nelson. It is a possibility of approving in part or in whole, and you could, if you want. Certainly, the recommendation of the Planning Commission is the recommendation of approval, so you would have that opportunity to further explore, much as you did with the Day Logan request that's coming up next. Over.
Okay, Commissioner Mills, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it sounds to me like we need to look at the water resources aspect of this, the wetlands aspect of it, a little more with that expansion. But I would move to approve the hot mix asphalt production side of the IUP and ask the Planning Commission to look at the wetland aspect of the expansion. Over.
Okay, do we have the second or support to that? Don't hear any, therefore motion dies. Okay, well, entertain another motion at this time with different wording.
Commissioner Dukirk,
Yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second for support?
Support, Sorley.
Very good. Very good. We'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Mills?
could we have discussion?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering how we're addressing the wetland side of things if it had not been discussed at the Planning Commission.
Okay, so I think I'll direct that to Mr. Lane or Mr. Nelson.
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mills, this is Director Nelson. What would happen if this is indeed approved is the wetlands regulations are still in effect regardless of this approval or non-approval. And so basically Mitch Travis, which is our wetlands staff member, would be paying attention and working with the applicants to ensure that all aspects of the Wetlands Conservation Act are adhered to. Over.
Okay, very good. Any further comments or questions?
This is Commissioner Dukirk.
Go ahead.
I would just like to address point of order. When the Planning Commission has their meeting and discussion and it makes their recommendation to move forward to the county board, discussion is over. And I'm a little disappointed that there is discussion of any kind or anyone going around how we practice our systems in moving forward. This property owner is working with the Planning Commission and doing what they are supposed to be doing. And so if there are concerns, those should be addressed within the Planning Commission and with the property owner, and I do not like it being brought forward during a county board meeting like this. Over.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion to approve what's recommended to us from the Planning Commission. And
this is Commissioner Mills.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was confused just about the conclusion. The conclusion of the report is in conflict with the recommendation, and so that's what I was trying to feel out here. I didn't want to put the county in a difficult position down the road, and so if there is anything we could figure out ahead of time, that's where I was coming from, not being privy to this situation aside from this report, and I can respect the recommendation from the Planning Commission and knowing that that there would be adherence to any of the applicable laws is fine by me. Over.
Okay, very good. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
On the motion, and second. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershline's aye. Passes. We'll go on to D under that item, the Dave Logan alternative seminar date, and there was a PDF on that. And Mr. Lane, would you like to comment more on that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This was a case originally presented to the Planning Commission on March 13th. It subsequently went to the Board of Commissioners on April 18th. In the interim, the COVID-19 virus made its presence known, and there was some reconfiguration of public meetings, public gatherings, and that sort of thing. The Board of Commissioners at its April 18th meeting did ask that in response to a request from the applicants, Ms. Day and Logan, to reconsider some alternative dates that were presented that basically pushed their seminars back further into the summer and into early fall. At the May 23rd meeting, May 13th I'm sorry, that's a typo there. At the May 13th meeting, Planning Commission voted to approve the alternative dates, which are July 31st to August 2nd, August 21st to the 23rd, the 28th to the 30th, September 4th to the 6th, September 11th to the 13th, and September 18th to the 20th. They did also have some concern regarding whether or not there would be county directives prohibiting or allowing public gatherings, but otherwise sent those dates, the revised dates, back to the Board of Commissioners for your consideration.
Very good. We'll open it up for questions or comments on this one coming back to us with change of date. Would you state your name and then I'll let you go forward? Okay. There's none then.
Can we just review those? Can we just review those dates today? Bill, did you take out the 21st to the 23rd of August?
No, that's in there.
Okay, that's not what the Planning Commission approved. The Planning Commission approved July 31st to August 2nd, August 28th to the 30th, September 4th to the 6th, September 11th to the 13th, and September 18th to the 20th. They did not approve the 21 to the 23rd. They only approved 5 dates.
Oh, I just cut and paste what Ms. Day submitted to me. So if there's a discrepancy there, then, and it's on the record, then that would be the reconfiguration of that.
What is the official record?
The official record from the Planning Commission and what was requested of the Planning Commission in their agenda does not have the 21st to the 23rd.
Okay. Attorney Hicken, I want to ask you on the legal issue here about how we can handle this with their discrepancy in dates.
I guess I would speak the recommendation from, well, I guess we need to know whether Commissioner Dukirk's memory matches Mr. Nelson's memory, Mr. Lane's memory as to the dates, and then you can proceed with a motion.
Okay, so Mr. Nelson, or please help us out here with this discrepancy.
Yes, this is Nelson, and I'm going to have to real quick consult my notes. As soon as we were done with the meeting, I just I kind of moved on to other things, so I can check that and get back if you guys want to table it and rehear it, or not rehear it at another meeting, but hear it a little later this morning. We can reconfirm that. I can go back to the recording of the meeting and make sure we have those dates correct.
Okay.
All right, hold on. I've got the agenda open, and it is on the front page of the planning agenda, and it does have August 21st and 23rd. Sorry. So the dates are correct. Sorry. I'm having problems with dates today.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So the dates that were presented to us are the correct dates.
They are. The public comment said they weren't, so I went and looked at them and thought that there was a discrepancy, and there isn't. So I'm sure that the ones that are on our agenda are the correct ones.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Any other further questions or comments?
You know, sorry, this is Commissioner Dukirk. I know with the COVID, there are concerns about people coming here, and I know that Logan Day have been very willing to adjust, and they did discuss at the Planning Commission that they are still, even if we approve it, they are still willing to adjust based on local recommendation and governor's orders. And I just want to address, you know, there's been this comment that this doesn't fit in the neighborhood. There is another business operating in this neighborhood within, you know, one house away. that is operating more than the governor's order of number of people that should be gathering. So, you know, if the board wants to say no to this because it doesn't fit the neighborhood, are we also going to say no to the other business? Over.
Okay. Well, I would comment on that. I guess your point is well taken. I believe if we have enforcement issues, they should be addressed. I don't believe that one wrong makes another one right. If we have something wrong in that neighborhood, then it should be addressed. That's my position as a commissioner. I've always learned that one wrong does not make another one right. And so that's an issue that I think hopefully can be resolved and shouldn't be part of this discussion. But I respectfully, look at that differently.
And you're right, Myron. One wrong shouldn't be another wrong. And if it's right to have a business in this neighborhood, then it's right for another person to have a business. It goes both ways. You can't have one business and not another.
I'm just concerned that this should be an issue that should be dealt with. If it's inappropriate and if it's not following the rules, then there should be some kind of enforcement taken to deal with that issue, not just to allow another one. But it is
Mr. Chair?
Permit. Yes, go ahead. I'd appreciate the comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Dukirk. This is Director Nelson. That the business that's being discussed is appropriate. It is. It's not a matter of enforcement. It is a matter of, and I believe the point was just the fact that it's being conducted. So it's not a matter of enforcement with regards to land use. It is deemed within the ordinance to go ahead and be acceptable as a business. And I believe the point was that the Planning Commission narrowed. There was a lot of discussion, just as much as there's as much discussion today about the appropriateness of that in the neighborhood. But that the existing business is by ordinance in the neighborhood. And so the Planning Commission did determine that the Day Logan business would also be appropriate in its limited fashion. Over.
So help me with this, Mr. Nelson. So there was an approval for this business through the Planning Commission?
The existing business did not even require a conditional use or any other elevated permit to conduct at its location. This business does. Over.
Okay, so that's my point. Yeah. So
the existing business, excuse me, is a vacation rental. Is that correct? Which is permitted in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yeah, it isn't.
That's my understanding.
It isn't a home business. It's a permitted use in the zone district.
Correct.
This is Commissioner Dishaw. Can we get back to what we're supposed to be doing here?
Well. Very good. So I made my comments. I also just indicate that I can't approve this. Number one, the uncertainty of the COVID virus issues going forward. But also I think it's an inappropriate use for that area, a residential area, having went out and talked to people and so forth. But that's only my thoughts, and I just wanted them to express them before the vote. So any other comments or questions before I call for a motion?
Mr. Chair, the way I'm looking at it is that we are to look at the seminar date. Isn't that more of the issue than continuing the business?
That could very well be. I'm just saying that I've never approved of this myself. So in the very beginning,
Commissioner Storley, the approval for the business to continue came to us, and with the dates that they wanted to have sessions with the COVID, we were concerned, and the applicants themselves offered different dates. And since this permit is approved based on dates and number of people, it needed to be sent back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved the operation of the business. The Planning Commission has now approved the change of the dates and the operation of the business. So we, the county board, are approving the permit to conduct business on these days.
All right, thank you for
Thank
the
you.
clarification. Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Storley. I think in light of what we're already dealing with in anybody gathering and so many events being canceled, I really do not feel that this particular group, which would probably be more than 10, would not be viable at this time for them to continue to gather people. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
This is Commissioner Mills.
Yep, Commissioner Mills, go ahead.
My biggest concern is echoing Commissioner Storley in regards to gatherings. And I wrestle with it because there are other businesses, like Commissioner Dukirk points out, where gatherings can be, the gather, you know, under our ordinance they're allowed, even though it goes against the governor's recommendations. And so what I see right now is where we're at as a community, how we're addressing COVID-19 to the best of our abilities, and that's kind of the hot thing that I see as far as the business itself. I don't see it as inappropriate in the neighborhood, but it's the gathering with these dates in these times that makes me really uncomfortable. Over.
Thank you. So any other comments or questions?
Commissioner Dukirk?
Yes.
I echo what Commissioner Mills said. I'm also concerned and uncomfortable, not knowing what the future is. But I fall on the side of following the governor's recommendations, and it is possible by August that group sizes will be more than 10. So I'm with you. I have a hard time with this one. Over.
Thank you, Commissioner Dukirk. Any other questions or comments? Then as board chair, I'll entertain a motion to approve the change in dates for the
motion to approve, Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay, is there a second?
Support, Commissioner Disha.
Okay, we've got motion and support from Commissioner Deshaw. Any other questions or comments? We'll do a roll call vote.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Yes, Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I guess just to reiterate that I don't see the biggest issue I have is with the current pandemic, and I would encourage. I don't think I can support this at this time, and I would encourage the application at a later date, because as I said, I don't have. It's more of just the situation. Over.
Okay. Very good. Well, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion before I call for the roll call vote?
Yeah, Commissioner Dukirk.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Dukirk, I would like to ask Mr. Nelson, can we table this until mid-July?
Mr. Nelson?
This is Director Nelson. It is possible. We do have statutory deadline decision requirements, and in order for us to extend them beyond the 120 days, we would need approval or acceptance of that extension from the applicants. And perhaps, Bill, if you're still there, did you get a long enough extension to be able to cover a decision into June or July?
We did get acknowledgement of a 120-day extension. So we're going, July, that's from the, I believe it was the March 1st submittal date. So that the middle of July is going to be kind of on the cusp of that 120 days. But we can ask for an extension from them.
Yeah, here's my suggestion then. If there wants to be more discussion, we can go ahead and approach the applicants again to see if they would make sure that it would be extended into July, and if not, we can revisit this again in June, in later June, and still be within our extended timeline. So it can be tabled for now.
Okay, so I guess to table it, Commissioner Dukirk, if you want to remove your motion, and Commissioner DeShaw, your support to second it, then we can table it.
Yeah, I would like, if Commissioner DeShaw is comfortable with it, I would like to change my motion to a table till June.
I will support that motion to table it.
Very good. So we have a motion to table this until June, and a second to that from Commissioner DeShaw, so we'll do a roll call vote. We'll go with Commissioner DeShaw.
I just had another question there. Part of this 120 days that's getting burnt up here, were these delays because of the COVID thing and not meeting in April? So
yes.
I think there is some wiggle room on that 120 days because of the current situation going on.
I don't, and Director Nelson can clarify, I think that was rescinded. There was an original move to forgive $15.99, but then that was subsequently removed. And Director Nelson, if you could chime in, that'd be great.
Yes, and that is, Bill's correct. There was a piece of legislation that had been entered into the legislature to go ahead and waive that timeline, the decision-making timeline that we have by statute, and that timeline was not passed in any of the legislation. And so at this point in time, that is a hard and fast number at this point, unless, and the biggest determinant factor that we can go beyond the 120 days is we're allowed to buy acceptance of the applicants themselves. If they approve of that or go along with that, then that will suffice.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this until June on an appropriate date, and a second. So I'm going to do the roll call vote at this time. Commissioner Sorley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bersheim's aye. Very good. We'll table this until appropriate submittal for consideration again in June. Okay, so vacation rental license deadline. We have a presentation on the PDF about some discussion in regards to extending the vacation rental license from May 31st to July 31st. And so I'll turn that over to our staff to provide any other information in regards to that PDF, explaining that to us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Director Nelson again. Yeah, this goes back to last summer when we went ahead and adopted our ordinance. We plugged in the deadline of May 31st for all existing operations to go ahead and apply for their license. We've had the majority of the operations have submitted the license. We have a little more than 100 that we would anticipate still applying. However, we do know that there are a number of those that have communicated with us that are not sure whether they're going to even operate this year or not. And so we've had, there's basically two requests that we've had from some of the operations, not all of them, only some. One of the requests was to consider extending the deadline And specifically, the request was to extend it from May 31st to July 31st. And the other was to go ahead and waive the application fee. Now, I went ahead and communicated with the vacation rental ordinance committee, and there was zero support for waiving of any of the fees, since we had already had incurred the cost as such, and there are a good number of the operations that have already applied and submitted their fees. So even logistically, that would be very difficult for us to do. There was also concern or consideration from committee members and others expressed that the whole reason for the adoption of the ordinance was to create a level playing field for everybody. And so there was, like I said, zero support for the waiving of any kind of fee associated with this, since it was relatively a small fee anyway. So the other element that comes in was the possible extension of the deadline from May 31st. There was mixed reception from the committee members on that one as well. I figured that the level playing field is the level playing field, and that's just a cost or a point of doing business. One of the things that is important to consider is that even if the board should go ahead and extend that application deadline from May 31st to July 31st, that does not relieve any of the operations responsibilities to get that license. And so if any place operates as a vacation rental, it is still incumbent upon them to be licensed regardless of what the dates were on that. And so there is that request, and it was kind of supported by a very, very slight margin to go ahead and waive that the deadline until July 31st. But, you know, basically I'm just presenting it to you for your consideration today, and I'll stand by for any questions. Over.
Okay, would you state your name if you have a concern or question in regards to this topic? Anyone wants to comment? If not,
Commissioner Mills?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sympathetic to extending the deadline, and my reasoning is that much like we're extending the tax deadline, there's just much disruption in everything. And similar to the previous discussion with the permit, we're trying to kind of hold off to see how things go and what happens. And so I know for a lot of, not all, but a significant number of vacation rentals, they are individuals or mom and pops or what have you, and are impacted by this. And I see it as another way to just be flexible and to try to help our community navigate these difficulties. So, yeah, over.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Commissioner
Just
Disha.
to reiterate, sorry, go ahead, Disha.
How many of them have not paid for their license so far?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Disha, we have approximately a little bit over 100 of them that have not applied that we anticipated to apply. But as I indicated, there are some of those that may not apply at all, that just may not be operating this year at all. So we don't really know. We do have way over 100 and close to 150 or so that have already applied and received their license.
Well, I would just assume leave it at May 31st then, since the ones that you figured are going to apply already did, so.
Very good, okay. Any other comments?
This is Commissioner Dukirk.
This is for people that are still to decide whether or not they operate this year. And, you know, June 1st is another opening date that Governor Walz has set. So just a reminder to the businesses that are listening to this, if you are operating your vacation rental, you need to have this license in place before your guests arrive. This is not an extension for you to get some extra time to pay it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
This is Commissioner Mills.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. Before a vacation rental is in operation, the license must be obtained. And where my sympathies were coming from is for those not sure whether or not they will operate, and just giving a little more time to see how things go. But my fear is that things are not going to get better by the extension, but it just gives people more time to consider all that over.
I agree with you, Dave.
I would just like to comment, I think what's in place is fair. They've known about it. I think it might create some confusion if we delay it, and I don't know if that's possible, that people would start doing it or thinking that we won't and forget about it, but I think people have known in advance. I agree with having, concerns for the COVID virus, but I'm a little concerned that it's not as applicable to this situation in regards to getting a license. That's just my comments. I'm reluctant to approve that on that basis. Okay, any other comments, questions before we go to a motion on that one?
It's Commissioner Disha.
Okay.
Well, if they decide to open, Tim, if they decide to open in the middle of July, they still have the opportunity to come in to get their license, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Very good. Okay, entertain a motion to approve this extending the deadline for applying for the vacation rental license from May 31st to July 31st.
Motion to approve. Sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Dukirk makes a motion. Do I have a second?
That was Commissioner Storley. That was me.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Okay, Commissioner second. Okay, very good. Any other discussion, questions?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Storley made the motion. There has not yet been a second, but I will second it.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I didn't even hear her, so I should be more specific in what I'm hearing, and I just thought someone commented and should have done it. So the motion was made by Commissioner Storley and seconded by Commissioner Mills. Okay, we'll go on a roll call vote. Commissioner Shaw?
No.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Nay.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye, over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye, over.
Commissioner Bershon is no. It does not pass. So it'll stay May 31st. Okay, we'll go on to highway. And going to the County Road 45 right-of-way acquisition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. This is Kristen Foster. Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, colleagues, and members of the public. I have a few items
that I would like to introduce today, starting with moving forward on our County Road 45 project. The action that I am requesting from the board is to authorize WSB to negotiate the easements needed for the County Road 45 project on behalf of Cook County, and the total cost of these right-of-way acquisitions, both temporary and some permanent easements, is expected to be up to $55,000. And that is within the budget that we have for the project. I would like to start with a little bit of background on the right-of-way process itself. What we have done so far is analyzed how the new road will impact or could impact each of the properties along the corridor. And WSB, who is working with LHB and the Highway Department on this project, has met or reached out to or exchanged messages with each of those property owners who could be impacted by this project to get a better understanding of what improvements lie on their property and things that we need to take into consideration. After those initial conversations, the next step is to get each individual parcel appraised by a professional appraiser. So that's important to know that it is not Cook County or the Highway Department necessarily that sets the amount we're offering to each property owner. That's based on someone with real estate knowledge who has independently looked at each property. Most of the offers for these 50 properties are under $1,000 or right around $500 for a small sliver of what would be a future ditch along the road. There are some properties with higher impacts, maybe a septic system that needs to be moved or a fence, some mature trees that could be impacted, and there are a handful of properties where we believe it's fair to offer more than $1,000. The individual amount for each property can be obtained from the Highway Department if there are any commissioners who are curious in the details, but they are not included in the packet because it's important to be fair and confidential when dealing with each respective property owner. So the overall budget for the right-of-way acquisition to keep this project moving forward, as discussed, is $55,000, and this project, the design costs, the right-of-way costs, and ultimately the construction costs are supported by the county's transportation sales tax. Are there any questions on the right-of-way process? Over.
Okay, would you state your name as Commissioner and we'll call on you?
Commissioner Mills?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kristen. So what is the largest amount for an individual? Over.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mills, I would not know that without looking up, but if the board would like more information, I'd be happy to get that information to Mike Tardy or Randy Roberts for presentation at the next meeting.
I was just curious. Thank you. Over.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mills, I can get that to you specifically this afternoon.
I think from what I'm understanding, Commissioner Mill, if you're curious, you don't, would you want this to be brought back at a future meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kristen. No, it was just for discussion. It's not critical on this decision, and I was just looking for perspective because I have none when it comes to easement acquisition. Over.
Any other questions?
Chairman Berstein, yes. So, Kristen, once all of this is done, okay, once all of this has been appraised, then what will be the next step?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Storley, with board support this morning, WSB will begin reaching out to the property owners as soon as this week. And with 50 properties along the corridor, I can't guarantee everyone will be contacted this week. Some will slip over the next couple of weeks. But as soon as the board approves the budget for right-of-way acquisition, the next step is for WSB to negotiate with each individual property owner. There are 3 right-of-way representatives who are working on this project. with the community. So after board review, it goes straight to the property owners for a review.
Great, thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to authorize WSC to negotiate these easements for up to $55,000, which will be approved by the Cook County Highway Department.
So moved, Dorley.
Early moves, okay. Second, support?
Commissioner Mills will second. Over.
Okay, any more questions or comments? Roll call vote. Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Story?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Bersheimer is aye. Passes unanimously. Okay. For information only, speed limit authority overview.
Thank you. Yes, my next topic is following up on some of the questions that we heard due to the detour along County Road 7 and what we can and can't entertain. One of the biggest questions that we're hearing from the community, residents along the corridors or other travelers, is why don't we reduce the speed limit on County Road 7 below 55 miles an hour, or extend the school zone speed limit where it's 20 miles an hour for a longer length. So I just wanted to provide some very high-level information on how speed limits are set, talk a little bit about school zone safety as well as highway safety, so you have this information for background in case the question continues to arise. The first thing that I wanted to share is surprisingly, reducing speed limits doesn't actually change the speed that people travel. There have been studies done throughout the state of Minnesota where a 55 mile an hour sign is put up in place of a 65 mile an hour sign. And unfortunately, the signs have little to no impact on driver behavior along a corridor. So even if we had the authority, even if we could change the speed limit of County Road 7 to 50 miles an hour or something less than that, we should know going into it that just changing the signs themselves won't change how people travel along that road. So that's probably not our best option for that rural 55 mile an hour zone. Another factor is that lowering the speed limit also doesn't reduce crashes. What happens if a lower speed limit was posted along County Road 7 is maybe a couple people would follow the signs, but generally the average speed would continue to be the same. And that difference in speeds that people are traveling leads to crashes. So I think what we're after here is how do we improve safety along County Road 7, both in the rural section as well as in the school section during the project. And the way that we accomplish that isn't necessarily by changing the speed limit of the corridor. There are other types of speed limits that exist in Minnesota, just to provide a brief overview of what those are. I'll talk about school zone speed limits last, but first of all, there is a work zone speed limit. Work zone speed limits apply when workers are present. So a work zone speed limit doesn't apply on a detour route, it would apply in the work zone where workers are present, and if at least one lane or portion of a lane of traffic is closed in either direction. There's also what we call a rural residential district that exists under the speed limit law, and that applies to townships who have the authority to enact a 35 mile an hour speed limit, just as we have the authority to designate our own school zone speed limit. But we don't have the authority to call this a rural residential district. What we can do is, if we believe a speed limit isn't fair, be it on County Road 7 or the Gunflint Trail or some of our roads around Portage, what we do if we believe a speed limit should be changed is we actually write a letter, pass the resolution, or the highway engineer writes a letter to MnDOT requesting that corridor be studied. corridors are studied by MnDOT under current state statute for consistency throughout the state instead of setting speed limits under political pressure. The professionals from MnDOT actually come out and look at the proximity of driveways on the road, how many cars a day it carries, pedestrians, and all types of other factors. And that's currently the way speed limits are set according to state law. So it's not really a recommended practice saying we shouldn't set speed limits. That's actually the way speed limits are set under statute 169.14. What we can do under the speed limit statute, and also as it applies to this project, is take another look at the school zone specifically. We have that in our signage budget already for 2020 to potentially make some changes to that school zone, improve the signage, look at the limits of it. Are the signs in the right place, or should they be extended a little bit farther? Should it be one continuous school zone from the high school over to Great Expectations, or should those be two separate school zones? All of those school zone questions are within our authority to examine and change, and that is within our budget for 2020. So that's one area where we can do something relative to some of the speed concerns that we're hearing related to the project. The other thing that I wanted to share, because I know there have been a lot of questions about the Highway 61 project in general, in case stakeholders haven't heard through other channels, be it WTIP or some of the YouTube videos that the city has been putting out on the project. If there are any safety concerns or other project-related questions, the person to contact, whether one of the commissioners wants to contact them or one of your constituents or someone else of the county, the person to contact is a gentleman by the name of Ed Welch. He is the project engineer for the Grand Marais project. And during the duration of the detour, that's actually MnDOT who oversees what happens on County Road 7 if you wanted to ask about temporary signs or anything like that. So I didn't come at this morning ready with a formal recommendation on the school zone, but I thought it was important to provide the board with that background information, what we can and can't do with respect to speed limits, and who to contact with some of the safety concerns that we're hearing. So at least you'll have that information going forward this summer. Over.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that topic? I'll just start one off if I may. Could you further explain the high school Y area and Great Expectations? Would you explain where the different zones are, or I think you alluded to that it's two different zones right now. There's the 20-mile-an-hour zone, and then the other one is the 30.
Mr. Chair, yes, I can explain that in more detail. The 20-mile-an-hour sign that's near the community center on one end and nearer to Great Expectations on the other end. So the question would be if those signs are in the right spot, or if those signs should be moved to make the school zone a little bit longer. And there is a methodology that the highway department staff will follow to make that recommendation for you when we're ready to do so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one? State your name, we'll call on you.
Heidi?
Commissioner Mills?
Commissioner Dukirk was first, then we'll go to Mills.
Kristen, can you just send us the contact information for Ed? I don't have it in my list of contacts, and I have a couple questions. That's it. Over.
Okay, Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kristen, for the overview. And I'm just wondering, one of the other options you had mentioned in the past was potentially clearing of obstructions, and I was just wondering if that's taken place, or if it's been reviewed or looked at, or if any other residents have reached out requesting that. Over.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mills, we did receive a request from one property owner to see if there's brush that can be cleared in the area of his driveway. The first step to following up on that is checking how much right-of-way we have at that location. As soon as we do that, it's just a matter of fitting it into our maintenance schedule sometime before the August detour, if we're able to cut down a little bit of brush to improve driveway visibility at that one location.
Okay.
Over.
Any other questions, comments? Very good, thank you. We'll move on to maintenance supervisor and foreman positions for information only.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last topic that I have to introduce will be followed by a presentation from Human Resources Director Pamela Dixon. So again, I'm not requesting any action on this item. I just wanted to provide a little bit of background to support the upcoming presentation from the Human Resources Department. I will plan to stay on the line at that time as well in case there are any department operational questions for me when Human Resources Director Dixon takes forward her action item. So right now, the way that our maintenance division is structured at the Highway Department is that the general foreman and the highway engineer lead most of the operations from day to day. The exhibit that I put forward for the packet today explains or attempts to explain a little bit of the difference between the general foreman position that we currently have filled and the maintenance supervisor position, which has been vacant for quite some time. I believe it was the spring of 2018, the last time we posted for a maintenance supervisor. At that time, for whatever reason, we weren't successful in recruiting what I consider a well-qualified candidate for that role, and my suggestion in support of the upcoming action item would be to take another look at that now that it's been a couple years later. For the past couple of years, I think that Mr. Sawyer and myself have balanced the responsibilities of a supervisor as best as can be expected without having that position filled. But when I think of how your next engineer might want to run the department, I think it's fair and important to consider putting a maintenance supervisor back in place instead of keeping that foreman role without supervisory authority. And a little bit of background is that prior to the spring of 2018, and we have always had a maintenance supervisor position at the Highway Department for at least 20 years. So it's unusual that we would have just a foreman without a supervisor in place, although the foreman has stepped up to do some of the duties of the supervisor if he is on vacation, for example. So that's a little bit of the history. Again, we've always had a supervisor. We last tried to recruit for that position a couple years ago, and we've been balancing things as best we can with that position vacant for the past couple of years. But I do support filling the supervisor position for the benefit of your next engineer and the department as a whole. The supervisor position will come with supervisory authority in addition to leadership. And I think those are skills that will be very important to the Highway Department in the long run as we look at Mr. Sawyer's retirement coming up and how we take the maintenance division next. I think that's the right way to go. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the budget position. If the board decides to move forward, this could be done without a budget increase. During the time the supervisor position has been vacant, we've been crushing additional gravel for the past couple of years, and the crushing request that was put forward on today's consent agenda is a reduced dollar value for crushing, anticipating that the supervisor position could be filled. So filling this position doesn't mean increasing the budget. It means balancing the budget between our different needs in a different way than we've done for the past couple of years. Over.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the maintenance supervisor position? We're going to be dealing with that in the next agenda item as well.
Mr. Chair.
Questions for Kristen on that?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
This is Rena. I just wanted to note that today is Kristen's last day, and how much we've appreciated her and how much we will miss her. So I just wanted to note that in case that people weren't aware that was up today.
Good. Thank you. That was my next topic on that. I was going to ask for when the last day is, and I think it was. So, yes. So any comments or questions in that regard as well for Kristen and her last day with us? I'd like to just say, wow, you've done a tremendous job in all respects, and just have such a high regard for what you've done in our county, and you've done it very professionally and worked well with others. It's been an ideal situation for us, and our loss is going to be someone else's gain. Thank you, Kristen. I'll open it up for comments on this topic or any other general comments for Kristen. So I'll just do a roll call on that. Commissioner DeShaw?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Kristen for her service to the county. It's been a pretty unique position between Lake County and Cook County. I think she did a great job for us up here, and I'm going to miss working with her, but I will see her at the ATP, and good luck at MnDOT.
Thank you. Commissioner Duker?
She's a jolly good gal. She's a golly good gal. We're gonna miss you. That's it.
That's nice. Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kristen, for your work for us. And I did amazing things with the culture and just helping us along. And I look forward to moving further ahead, and unfortunately be without you. And I wish you the best of luck with MnDOT.
Okay, Commissioner Starley?
So Kristen, much appreciation for what you've done, and always the appreciation, excuse me, for the insight that you have. For instance, your suggestions on maintenance supervisor and foreman. You know, from your position, you understand how all that works, and so you have helped us to understand a lot of how a lot of things work in the highway department. Best of luck, and I'm sure we'll see you around the bend. Over.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to human resources.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, commissioners, colleagues, and the general public who may be listening today. This is Pam Dixon. Under letter A, I would ask the Board of Commissioners to approve the retirement of Charlie Sawyer. As I look at the agenda, I want to acknowledge that. Hello?
We still hear you, Pamela.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, I thought I heard somebody cutting in. Sorry about that. I wanted to acknowledge there is an error on under letter A. Charlie's effective date is not the 21st of August. It would be the 31st of August.
Okay. Any questions or comments for our Human Resources Director, Dixon, on that? Then Chair will welcome a motion to accept with regret the retirement of Charlie Sawyer.
I'll make that motion, Commissioner DeShaw.
So moved.
Okay, I heard Commissioner Dukert. Second?
Support, Commissioner DeShaw.
Commissioner DeShaw? Was that Commissioner DeShaw?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Starley?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Dukert?
Aye. Thank you, Charlie. Over.
Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. Thanks, Charlie, for all your service and hard work. We'll go on to B, approve updated job description and posting for maintenance supervisor.
This position, the job description was reviewed. by Kristen, as well as our interim county engineer, Mike Tardy. There was a modification to the job description to change the education. It was a 4-year degree. What is more appropriate for this position is a 2-year degree. So that was the major change, and a couple of wording changes. Those did go through personnel. And the job description was also sent through our classification or job evaluation team, since there was a major modification to the education. It did not, however, change the grade. So this position is still a grade 190.
Okay. Very good. Any comments or questions? Please state your name and I'll call on you. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the updated job description and posting for the maintenance supervisor.
This is Commissioner Mills. I move to approve the updated job description. Over.
For support?
Support, Storley.
Very good. Commissioner Storley, support. Roll call vote. Commissioner Storley?
Aye. Over.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye.
Commissioner Bershon's aye. Passes unanimously. Okay.
Point of clarification, Chair, Mr. Chair. That was a twofer or a double on that letter B. I was asking for approval for the updated job description as well as the posting, and I wanted to.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought I did say both with that motion, but would you prefer two motions?
I know that you said both, but I heard at least the first motion that came through from Commissioner Mills was to for the updated job description only, as I heard it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you for catching that. Is that your?
This is Commissioner Mills. Yes.
So we should have another motion. Okay. You're supporting that, Commissioner?
I'll move to post the description as well. Over.
Very good. Do we have support for that?
Storley, support.
Okay, very good. Do a roll call vote on that. Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Duker?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye. Over.
And Commissioner Bershon's aye. Thank you for clarification on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Approve out-of-class assignment on an interim basis for Jim Wallner.
The request for approval for this out-of-class assignment on an intermittent basis for Jim Wallner. There are times when Brian Silence is not on site. He may be on personal leave or having to be at another location. And in those times, it will happen and has happened where Mr. Wallner will step up into the director level role to accomplish tasks. And so Mr. Silence brought forward a request to pay Mr. Wallner accordingly when that happens. So we are asking for an intermittent out-of-class assignment where Mr. Silence will be able to send through a personal change notice by April so that Mr. Wallner is being paid at the appropriate level when he is in an acting role in lieu of Mr. Silence.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Any questions or comments on that one? State your name, please, and I'll call on you.
This is Commissioner Desha.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't really understand why you would change someone's pay grade. He's hired to do what he's doing. Your boss leaves you a task to do. You do the.
Your ideas on these 4 topics, I will work on it as well and present it at that meeting. The first one would be, what are you particularly proud of with your county's pandemic response? And I think we've got a lot there. But if you have something that you would like to mention, would you please send me an email? And I will try to incorporate that into my thoughts in that regard. The second area they're seeking input would be, are you planning any permanent changes to your county operations as a result of changes you made during the pandemic? You know, I think we've been closed to public service or limited service, appointment by only. But we're also sort of looking at our travel expenses maybe going forward. So if you have anything else that you think we should include about permanent changes, I'm not really aware of anything significant other than what we've done. But they could develop. The third area is, what is our county's current biggest challenge that is not intended to be COVID specific but can be? And I think our biggest challenge right now is tourism starting and the different expectations that we seem to be having. But I think we're very well, prepared for new developments in the COVID area. And fourthly, what is your county's approach to budget development in this current environment? Do you expect to include changing any fees or taxes for individuals or businesses? And I don't think we've done that, but we've delayed. But I think we could talk about the budget advisory process, which might be a little unique. And I think the other issue that we've done is we've eliminated $704,000 from our current budget to move forward next year in our budget planning, which is going to help hopefully lower that levy concerns at least. So with that, if you have anything to add, we can make maybe a couple of general comments about other things we'd like to report. But please contact me by email by maybe tomorrow at noon or by the end of the day, and I'll work on this maybe later in the day on tomorrow, Wednesday, and present that report on Thursday. So are there any questions or concerns about that process? I'll just open it up. State your name, please.
Commissioner Dukert?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just get the 4 questions? I'm really sorry. It was really hard to follow the questions with all of your commentary. And so could I just get the questions emailed?
Okay, sure. Oh, sure. Thank you. Yeah. Number 1, what are you particularly proud of with your county's pandemic response? Okay, go on. Secondly?
Can I just get those emailed to me so I can read them and respond to you if I have anything to add to your
Sure.
point?
Okay, I'll send them out right after this meeting. Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, I thought about doing that before, and then we had a little bit mix up on getting that out on my part, but I just had some questions about whether I could email all commissioners, but I think at your request I'll do that.
You can, we just can't respond to all, or you can send the questions to Rena and she can send them to all of us.
Well, that was my intention, but something broke down there. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Okay, but I will send them. Okay, any other comments on that? So, do we have any other commissioner reports? Okay, any meeting updates? Meetings to note is the EDA public hearing May 28th at 4 o'clock. That'll be a Zoom meeting this week. And Board of Appeals and Equalization on June 18th at 6 o'clock in the Commissioner's room so far, I guess, if we can do that. Anything other Commissioners want to mention at this time, or I'll move to a motion to adjourn? Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Commissioner Mills.
Commissioner Dukirk.
Okay, Commissioner Mills is first. Support? We have support for the motion? Charlie, okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner DeShaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Dukirk?
Aye.
Commissioner Mills?
This is Commissioner Mills. Aye. Over.
Commissioner Storley?
Aye.
And Commissioner Bersheim's aye. Thank you for a very productive meeting. Got a lot done, a lot covered in a very long morning. And hope everyone has a good day. And we'll adjourn the meeting.